Hello and welcome to another video. Today's card, I'm actually going to use a different stamp set altogether, but I'm going to use the same technique that this card shows. I don't know if you can see it very well. So notice here there are lots of colors within the flowers themselves. That was actually done using what is called the baby wipe technique. So that's what we'll be doing today, is the baby wipe technique. And I thought that since this is pretty feminine, I thought I would aim for something a little bit more masculine, and I would use the Rooted in Nature stamp set, and I would use this large tree ring here, because I thought that would add a really nice masculine without it being too much, hopefully. But I'm only going to use this one, whereas in the other card I used the little leaf image as well. In this case, I'm actually going to try to see what it looks like with just this piece here. And then I think we're going to use this sentiment here for what we'll include on the card itself. See, and I haven't even used this one yet, so that's fantastic. So, that being said, let me show you how it's done. It's not particularly difficult. It is one of those techniques that's really unique and not necessarily one that if you're looking for the exact same card every time, you're definitely not going to get it with this. If you want something original, you will definitely get it if you use this technique. So I used, and you can use any kind of background. Sorry for my blankness here. Boop. You can use some kind of acetate, or you can use any kind of, I usually keep, here it is. So this is what I used to make it. It has spread as I let it sit overnight, because I made this card yesterday, but notice I use a lot of ink from my reinkers. Yep, there it goes. And so I kept it in this little box, so I'd be curious to see whether or not, let's try it. Let's see whether or not I could actually transfer ink. Oh yeah, look at that. See? So it looks like it would keep a little bit. It might even keep longer if I had put it in like an actual Ziploc bag. But I do recommend, since it will bleed through, that you put it on something that won't matter, and usually it's going to be some kind of non-porous surface. So I do recommend that. In my case here, I think I'm going to use this piece since the other piece has a little bit of ink on it. It really doesn't matter which wipes you're using. I use, and it gets harder and harder to find, I think, nowadays. This particular brand, the Pampers here, and looks like it's complete clean, unscented. Here's the reason why. Notice it has no patterns on it. Some wipes nowadays have little patterns, something cutesy, but it's not helpful when you're trying to get coverage of your ink. And then I actually just fold it up and try to get it where the lines are going to meet up, and then just kind of fold it on itself a little bit, so that way you have kind of your canvas right here. And so now what we need to do is actually add our ink. And to do that, you need to add your reinkers in order to actually get the ink exactly where you want it. So for this card, I thought in the previous one, let's see, there it is. So in the previous card, I had used Blackberry Bliss, Gorgeous Grape, and Highland Heather. And I liked that you can definitely see that there are 3 different types of those purples. And then I actually used the same little pouch of ink, or the same little baby wipe for ink for the sentiment. And I thought that really made it kind of all tie in together. So I used it for this, and so I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm going to use different colors. So I'm going to use Early Espresso, Crumb Cake, and Cajun Craze. I think that the Cajun Craze is going to kind of make it a little bit brighter, even though both of these here are neutrals. I think this kind of regal color is going to make it pop a little bit, and I'll save that one to add in last. So let's do our Crumb Cake first, and all you do is you go kind of around. You do want to make sure that you have your ink in spaces greater than what you'll actually be putting on your ink pad. Oh no, good thing that was not my card base. Woohoo! Because here's the thing. If you have a very large image like this, if I don't have my ink taking up all of that space, I will have trouble getting good coverage. So you're doing the same thing. With your dark colors, it is easier to kind of go light and then add in more later. So feel free to play it a little safer with your early espresso if you choose the same colors I did. So I'm going to do that, and now finish off with my Cajun Craze. And in this case, I'm essentially just trying to fill in the gaps. They will spread out a little bit on their own as well, so don't feel like you have to use up a ton of drops of your reinkers. You can just give it a minute or two in order to make sure that it has all of those spots. Let's do one here. There we go. So now we'll give it a second here while I tell you what other parts and pieces you will need. Let me grab a little tissue here. All that extra ink. Let's see how did it get through. It did, but not just a little bit. That's okay. So let me go ahead. I'll actually clean this off since I had already used it to kind of test the other one while the ink kind of keeps spreading there. So there's that. So now what I envision is just taking this and using my stamp and stamping them throughout where they don't overlap, but they do fill up the whole space. I have a second piece here because I thought I would use this to put it kind of in a corner, because this piece will go on the inside. I'm hoping, we'll see how well I did with the inking of the Cajun Craze, I'm hoping that this would go on the inside with the actual piece here, right? So we'll see. We'll see what that looks like. Trial and error, I love it. So let's go ahead and take a stab at it. Notice since this is the red rubber ink, I actually don't need to have the pad underneath. So notice here, do you see that line? That's from the line underneath. So the way to kind of help avoid that, kind of tap around. And I was a little heavy-handed. I was hoping I was going to be a little bit softer. That's okay. Let's see how it looks. So leave it for a second. Let the ink get absorbed by the paper. Hey, that's not too bad. So notice here, because I went off into the corner, this ink didn't get stamped off. So you can absolutely get it off here before you go and pick up more ink. So I recommend, notice how I'm kind of tapping all around to try to avoid getting that line through the ink again. So there's that. Let's do this guy. There we go. And I'm also trying to kind of rotate it a little bit because if they all have the same kind of direction, it's gonna look kind of odd. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah. So let's try that one. Let's do there. Yeah, this will be fun. Let's see here. I think two more, one in each of those corners, and I think we'll be set. So notice I probably, note to self, just don't fold it next time. I think that would be, because I keep having to tap it to make sure that it doesn't do the line in the middle. So I think that would be a good thing to avoid. So I think maybe next time I'll make sure to use a larger piece of acetate. Okay. And this last one here doesn't have to matter as much because it's only this tiny little piece. There we go. Very cool. And then let's bring in the piece that will become my inside piece. Again, I'm only trying to get the corner so it doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. Fantastic. So I'll set this off to the side. Like I said, it'll keep for a while, but not too long, especially because it'll keep spreading, so it gets dissipated throughout. So be careful there. So let's go ahead. Let's mount our card layer there onto our card base. Let's get my bone folder. Luckily, the ink will dry pretty quickly. So this is a piece of Cajun Craze. This piece is 5.5. Right here. 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. I've scored it ahead of time. So now, let's see, do we want to do it like this? Oh no, definitely like this. I think that'll be great. So now we want to adhere this, and we'll just do that with some of our Tombow liquid adhesive. Ooh, that was a little heavy-handed in that corner. So let's go ahead and put that in there. And the other benefit here, if you are fond of the liquid adhesive like I am, is that if you were to put it down a smidge crooked, you have a little bit more give than you would if you didn't have that on there. Let's do the same for the inside piece here. The perk of not needing to go heavy-handed on the inside a piece as well is that when you write on it, sometimes if you use thicker glues, it kind of gets bumpy underneath, and then you find out that it's really difficult to write your sentiment like nice and clean and straight when you have, there we go, when you have that kind of bumpy nature. So then I thought I would add a little bit of this twine here. This is not just regular twine, though. We do have linen thread. This one, let me show you exactly where it is. Boop, ba-doo, ba-doo. There we go. So it is right here, and it is called the braided linen trim. And this is really, really versatile, as is the linen thread. So these are really nice in terms of adding a little touch to something that is otherwise seems maybe just a hair in need of something. So I thought, what better way to do that than with this, especially because since I'm trying to get this to be a bit more of a masculine card, a ribbon proper might have looked a little off. So I'm just tying a knot here, and I'm not even tying a bow. I'm just going to do a double knot here. So notice I'm trying to hold it tight. Oops, hello. Loosened it up there. All right, so I'm going to tighten it here, and then bring this knot down. Tight. Bring the knot down. Oh my goodness. See, it's like my fingers are camera shy. There we go. That's better. So then tighten it up a little bit, and I think actually once we trim it down, I think we might even fray the ends a little bit. That'll be nice. So let's go ahead while we still have our ink pad handy, our DIY ink pad. Just got a scrap of the Whisper White here. I've got my stamp mounted up. Notice these little pieces are pretty small, so we're actually going to cut them out. I think that'll lead to some really cool looks. So let's try attempt one. Oh, that looks totally cool. Look at that. Right? Isn't that neat? So, and you can use this with any color combination that you love. So you could have a different color. If you wanted to use the same stamp set, you could go into greens, or you could do, you know, purples again. You could do all kinds of different combinations. It's really up to you what makes you kind of like what makes your creativity shine. So maybe even yellows. Yellows might have been fun, especially at super happy colors. That'd be fun. So let's do this. And the fact that these are rectangles makes them really easy to snip. And you could even change the order if you wished. I kind of like the order they come in though. So I will keep it that way. And we're actually going to be using mini dimensionals here to pop them up. I think that'll make them come off the page a little bit better, especially since they're the same color as our background on the card. So let's go ahead, and there we go. Boop. So we've got our images. Let's get our mini dimensionals out. And notice, you might be seeing them and you're like, well, those are kind of big for the mini dimensionals. Well, fun fact, I'm actually not using the dimensionals themselves. I'm going to use the bones here because these are going to be sufficient for what we need. So all I'm doing, taking this and then just layering it on here, boop, like that. And notice that that is thin enough where it's going to be perfectly hidden by our cardstock. Boop. And same thing for the last piece. And you could definitely cut the margins a little bit bigger if you wish. That's not an issue. Alrighty. So, moving on. Oops. Be Strong was first, so let's go ahead and do that. And let's put it right here. I'm going to put it also a little bit angled. I think that'll be kind of fun. Be Happy. And then Be You will go underneath this ribbon. Or, sorry, trim. Linen trim. Actually, let's see. Do you think I could hold it in place with this? Oh, yeah, look at that. I'm holding it in place a little bit there. Okay, so now I actually just have a regular pair of scissors that I have a piece of ribbon on. This tells me that this is for a ribbon, so that I try to not damage my paper scissors, my paper snips. So I'm going to trim them down a little bit just so that they're not quite as big. And then I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool. I'm going to use this paper piercing side, and I'm just going to fray the ends here a little bit. Not a ton. I don't want it to like start falling apart, but just enough. Just enough. There we go. And you want to be careful not to scratch the cardstock underneath it too much. I'm trying to make sure I push gently here. Oop. It's like I'm undoing a braid. So there's that, and then you can kind of pull them out a little bit. There we go. And then there we go. And this card is ready to be sent to somebody for encouragement, or just that I'm thinking about them. And that way, this is kind of that more, I mean, it looks very different than my more feminine card, but it's using the same technique, right? It's that baby wipe technique. And you can use this with any color reinker. I used colors that are kind of all go together. So in this case, I used kind of all purples. Here I used more woodsy colors, the browns and this kind of Cajun here color. And so that looks really great, but you can use any color, and they don't necessarily have to be colors that all blend in together like this. The one trick I will say though, if you are choosing to use, say, you know, green, red, and blue as your base colors, when you put it on the paper, just note, one of the things I do when I stamp it up, I do kind of wiggle it around a little bit so the colors blend. If you're going to do that with colors that really don't match well, make sure that when you move it, rather than moving it kind of large, you'd want to keep it kind of small, because otherwise all of your colors will just bleed together, which might look really cool, but it might also look kind of mucky depending on the colors you've chosen. So let me know which one you like better in the comments below. If you need any of these materials, I'll have them listed below on this YouTube video. I'll also have direct links to how to purchase the items on my blog that's associated and linked below. If you have need of any of these products, or you would like me to use this baby wipe technique but with a different color combination, or a stamp set that you think I might have, feel free to let me know and I would happily give it a go. And then that way I'd be able to, you know, hopefully have you guys see something that you'd like to see. So that being said, if you need anything, let me know. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe below so that you can see and get notified of more videos that I put out. You definitely want to hit the notification bell. I'm trying to, this week is the week of attempting to plan out what I'll have as some really good and useful tip videos for you, so that way you'll have card inspiration videos, but hopefully once a week or so starting next week you would also have tip videos. So if you need anything, let me know. Until next time, bye guys.